right. Hello, everybody. Today, we are here with Mike Roberts from San Diego Code School, and I am Kim Schofield, and I will be your host, and we'll find out what Mike is doing, how he does it, and all kinds of interesting stuff. So, Mike, why don't you start by giving us a little bit of history of who you are and what you do and how the Code School got started.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Mike Roberts. I am the founder of the San Diego Code School. I am a software engineer by trade. So I've been writing software for about 32 years. Started when I was a teenager and have basically done it as a hobby most of my life. And then at some point I realized I could get paid to do it. So that was super fun. And I was not a great student. So that's not, my parents were not terribly proud of me taking the 10-year route through San Diego State, but I did eventually get a degree in computer science, and it has been, super beneficial to be able to have both the experience, the sort of the self-taught experience, as well as some of the formal training, under the belt. The process of converting from a principal level senior engineer to what I'm doing today was largely out of being involved in the startup community and having lots of people that would come to San Diego, and many of them would come to a meetup. I was very involved in the meetup community and ask, hey, what are your thoughts about a code school or coding boot camp? And so after enough people asking me about that, I finally sort of started doing the investigation and eventually took a position working as sort of a chief academic officer. So I was largely responsible for the student experience and making sure rewriting curricula, making sure that students were really having a great immersive experience, and then really bridging that gap and making sure they were ready for entry-level roles. So I started kind of in that space about 6 or 7 years ago, and I've helped hundreds of students land first jobs in technology. And then in 2018, so a few years back, I founded the San Diego Code School. And it was really born out of necessity. The school I was at closed, and I wanted to continue to help folks. So we started that back a couple of years ago. And finally, about a year ago, we transitioned into an apprenticeship model. I'm sure we can get into that in a little bit, but that's been super exciting. Again, we're always just looking for ways that we can help people, transition from where they are. And primarily, I focus on folks that are underrepresented and often overlooked. So communities of color, women, folks that you just don't see a lot in these STEM careers. And so it's super exciting to be able to create opportunities with them.
That is so cool. Okay, so yes, we will get more into the apprenticeship part too. And I want to make sure we give everybody a really good overview of the things you do that support the Code School as well. So I know you have a podcast and you have a live LinkedIn show. So tell us a bit about that, and then we'll go back to the apprenticeship.
Yeah, absolutely. So every week, as part of just the effort to build community and help genuinely more people that I can impact through my apprenticeship program, we do what's called a Looking for Work, Ask Me Anything session live on LinkedIn. So I love it because it gives me a chance to directly hear what stories and struggles and things that folks that are looking for their first opportunity are encountering. And I have a pretty good sample size of seeing it in the past. And so usually I can provide some really, I hope, impactful advice that really helps them sort of make the process go smoother and shorten the time frame that it takes for them to go from where they are to landing that first job. So we do that every Thursday, 100% free. It's LinkedIn Live. We simulcast it across like YouTube and Periscope and Twitch and Facebook. But anybody, like I said, is welcome to come drop a question in the comments and we answer them. The other thing that we do to more directly help build community and relationships is feature folks and have a podcast that's all about hiring and retaining diverse talent. And so the first season, we recorded 75 episodes. We're dropping a couple episodes, almost an episode a day. So we pause, and then we're going to start season 2 pretty soon. I'm already recording some episodes. Big focus this season is not only about diversity, equity, inclusion, but also how do we layer in mentorship and how do we really create the opportunity for people that are of a diverse background to really be included and feel like they're belonging in the process of getting into these tech roles. So super excited about those. Those I think are great ways to, when folks are asking like, what can I do? How do I get started? It's as easy as like just routing people to get the help they need, or you know, sharing your voice and lending your stories about what wins and successes you've seen in making efforts towards including, you know, more women, including more LGBTQ or Black or Latinx. Everybody's got something that they can share that might help push the process forward.
Excellent. Yes. And I am very excited to share all that. I will make sure that all the links go up with the webinar. So, all right. So that is cool. So you've got Snackwells, you've got the live LinkedIn show, all of that. So inclusive, so meant to reach out to everybody. So now tell us a little bit more about the San Diego Code School itself and the apprenticeship program that you put in place.
Sure. So we started as a tuition-based program, and we realized that one of the friction points for students was affordability. The other was accessibility. And even though we were making strides in that direction, it really felt like we needed to sort of like completely reimagine and rethink about what should this immersive experience be if we took a 100% student-centered approach. And then everything just started to kind of make sense in terms of like the apprenticeship pattern actually fitting what we were trying to accomplish. So rather than charging tuition to students, we pay students. So it's one of these like earn and learn models where they come in, they get paid from the very beginning to go through that immersive coding bootcamp experience. And then they gain a year of meaningful hands-on experience so that by the time they're done with the apprenticeship, they really are ready for an entry-level role and have demonstratable skills that are much easier for us to then sort of plug them into an organization that's a little bit larger than the path that I was seeing for like the first 5 or 6 years, which was getting people ready and then finding a lot of resistance out in the ecosystem because a lot of the larger employers are just not geared for bringing on early career developers. They want either a CS degree or they want some more experience. So they were starting at smaller companies. They were spending some time at a small startup, and then they would get like, you know, sort of poached at, you know, 6 to 8 months in. And so I was like, well, we should just create a mechanism to just get them 6 to 8 months of experience, and then we can get them directly to where they end up at, right? It just, as an engineer, you know, let's engineer a solution for what we're seeing happening out in the real world. And so all of those things aligned and caused us to think, maybe it makes sense for us to go through the formal process and like register with the state of California and have a registered apprenticeship program. And today we do. So it's super exciting.
Well, I think that's absolutely amazing. Number one, that you looked at the whole situation and you found a way to bring all the pieces together. They already existed, but they did need that ability to bring them together, and that you are registered. So these kids, when they go through, what kind of credentials do they get after they've gone through your program?
So at this stage, they get a certificate of completion, which again, the state has some pretty stringent requirements in terms of what we needed to do to prove that, you know, this is a effective program, and the state is willing to provide, you know, some resources to try and help make sure and to incentivize us to get as many people as we can successfully through the program. Now that said, we're definitely going above and beyond, and we're working on stackable credentials, and we're working with some local colleges. I don't want to throw any names out there yet, but we're doing a lot of conversations about how do we get college level credit and make that sort of an extra perk, so that once someone goes through the program, not only can we get them into a job, but we can also sort of get them onto that path of eventual degree completion, or at the very least have this like credential that they can carry with them, and doesn't just end at they got some hands-on experience, and wherever they landed that first opportunity, they've got to stay there for long enough for that to be the end all be all. So yeah, so lots of things in the works, but as with anything that you're dealing with, you know, the state and government, you know, the process takes much longer. You know, you got to deal with the creditors and all that kind of stuff. But meanwhile, I think we're just creating this awesome opportunity for folks that reduces the friction of, you know, for a lot of folks that I was dealing with in the past, they would go to a coding boot camp and then they'd be kind of like out in the wilderness on their own, sort of figuring out how do they navigate the job search process. And so taking that out of the way and basically saying, look, you can be 100% focused on learning and growing and getting better for the first year. And then we'll facilitate making sure that you're having conversations with the right people and teeing up those opportunities. While we can't do the same numbers and volume of how many students we served previously, we're creating some quality outcomes. And then I think, knock on wood, my hope is that it'll grow and will become sort of like the national model for how apprenticeships in technology can be done.
Excellent. And I love that because it will take a long time for accreditations to go through. I don't know the California statute or the California rules, but even up here in Canada, it takes a long time. But you just said
Oh, yeah.
again, let's take that and then take the pieces we've already got. By getting accredited, you're already adding legitimacy and that quality assurance to people that as these kids move out, they've actually had to complete something, like you said, that passed rules and was accredited. And that says a lot to an employer. And I love that you took what you learn in coding, how to become somebody who works in this industry is not the same as how to learn some stuff that'll get you into this industry. Because you learn a coding language doesn't mean you can go out and get a job. They're two separate animals. We have to put them together somehow. And that, I think, is what you've done for these kids, which is absolutely amazing. You didn't say, hey, go take a Python course or go learn how to program JavaScript or whatever it is you want to do. Come here and we'll show you how that's just a little bit of what you do, and the rest of it is how you make all this happen and figure out what the customer wants, the client wants, and figure out how to get it to them. That kind of communication.
And a lot more of it.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, a lot more of it is exactly that. It's the soft skills. Mm-hmm. It's the ability to think a little bit bigger and like step back and actually try and understand what are the business needs that I'm trying to address as a software engineer. I think a lot of times folks that are just sort of at the early stages are not quite understanding that that's what we're hired to do. We're hired to identify the problem and create the most efficient and maintainable solution for that problem. And instead, they're really focused on like, what's the right language for me to learn, and what's the right path for me to go, and what's the right, and it's like, those are just a small fraction of what the actual skills are that you need to be, really appealing to a employer, because employers want to know, beyond understanding the foundations, are you a good employee? And do you have enough learning agility where in the next 3 months, 6 months, year, 5 years, you're going to continue to grow and stay with the organization and be loyal? They want a lot more of those skills. And so much of the process that we use and we bake into our programs are geared around that, around let's make sure we're really helping people to elevate all of their skills and not just the small technical ones.
Right. Well, and as you know, in our industry, there's so many languages, there's so many frameworks, there's so many everything that you can't possibly learn them all. You can't possibly know which ones you would need for each particular job. And I'm not sure what you think. I look at the way the companies have advertised for positions, and I think that's changing over time. And I think programs like yours are going to really push that to change more. They're not saying you must be fluent in this, and this, and you've got this whole list and your eyes just get big and the kids just go, oh my God, I have to go become an expert in all of these things. What you need to do is just say, hey, this is what I've done. I worked here, I finished this, I can do this. That means I can do anything. We can go learn a language. You can go learn a framework. You can do anything if you understand where to start.
Yeah, I think it's much more about what your skills are, what you bring to the table, than it is your pedigree. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of that shifting. There's still a lot of old guard. There's still a lot of organizations that are still focused on, in order for you to get by the gatekeeper, you need to have a CS degree. Or in order for you to get onto this team, you need to be like in this, not just a CS degree, but in this type of school, right? Yes. Top elite programs, etc. And it's interesting to see the shift, to see more people embracing the idea of, well, the reality is we can't necessarily, given our infrastructure, produce as many CS grads as the demand. And so that said, we got to think of alternative pathways to get people the skills. And the amazing thing is that there's so much information that's available these days. So you can practically get a CS degree online through all of these different like open programs. Like MIT has great programs online for
they do.
CS programs. I mean, so if you were able to curate that path, you could get a top-notch education in computer science from all of these different really prestigious schools. And so that, given that, we have to really rethink what are the practices and the patterns that we've used in the past, and are they going to continue to be effective moving forward? Because these days, I'm talking to a lot of folks who are just like, why am I spending all of this money for a 4-year degree when there's all these other resources that might be able to get me there in the same time or less time? and could maybe be more economical. There's still something to be said for that experience, right? To be able to say, hey, I really want a more, liberal arts married with, the CS upper division courses and stuff. But that said, I think the smart organizations are really rethinking their strategy in terms of how do we assess candidates? What are the real skills they need to be successful in the job? And I feel like we try and listen as much as we can to that and pick up on the signal and then say, okay, I can do that. I can teach them those skills. And then we bake that into the curriculum and make sure that when presenting these candidates to employers, they have all of the things that they're looking for, which in many cases is the non-technical. Yes. There are some technical parts. They have to understand the fundamentals, but at the end of the day, they want people that can complex problem solving, they can communicate, they can collaborate, work well with other people. They understand the tools, they understand, version control and workflow, things that are going to be pretty important so that we're not having to have them retrain as soon as they, land inside an organization. Yes. They're pretty much ready to, start absorbing and understanding the code base and contributing right away.
Yes. Oh yeah. If you can walk in, sit down, open your repository, whatever it is you got to do, and you can start, well, then you can always move forward and layer and ask questions. I think that's perfect. And I think it's bringing education kind of full circle to where you're right. There's always going to be a reason or there's good things about going to school. There's good things about getting those degrees. If the things you get at the end of them are what you really, really wanted, not to get pushed into them because it's the only entrance, it's the bar to entry into something that doesn't really require the main things that you get out of having a degree. You have degrees, I have degrees. I got things out of those that was not how to code. The fun fact is we learned how to code on the outside and then we went back and then you went to school and learned all the things that we did with it. The only thing they ever taught us there was that very first language, which in my case was C++. But then as you go through year after year after year, you get to year 7, year 8, wherever you are, and they say, hey, we're going to do this. And you go, well, I guess that's my weekend or whatever. We're going to go and learn this other language framework. And that's the job and that's the business and you have to love it. But I do love that. It's getting separated.
Yeah.
That's not everybody's first love. That's not everybody's thing. Do what you need to do to excel at what you really, really want to do. And I know your system. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and the timing there, I think is important as well. I don't think it's a binary choice. I don't think it's like when you start an immersive program or when you're self-taught that you forego the opportunity to go down, a 4-year path. It's maybe not a straight route, but instead it's you start and then you're in the industry for a while. Then you use like tuition reimbursement to complete your degree over, 6 years or so, like part-time, right? So I think there's way more opportunities than I think sometimes people's brain and they think of this box, right? And it's, you graduate from high school, you go to college, you get your first job, or you get an internship over the summer and then you get your first job, and they think that's the path, that's the happy path. And the reality is the happy path is like, what makes you happy, right?
Exactly.
What's going to fit into your life and actually help you to kind of like be successful and not think of it as like, well, I was a failure because I didn't get into my first choice and instead I got to go to community college. It's not, I got to go to, it's, man, that's a great opportunity, right? You're going to save a bunch and you're going to be able to get through all of your prerequisites without you having to worry about fighting somebody for, a seat in the class. So I think it's, it's about your perspective too.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. And you, excuse me, the kids that I went to school with, the people, the whole range of them, the ones that truly got the most out of it were the ones that were there for exactly the reasons you said. They were there because they decided it was the place to be. It wasn't because they thought they had to be there. And they had life experience. And that went so far into helping them take what they were learning into, far, far beyond what they could have done. So yeah, I definitely agree. Choices, that's what we all want, is choices. So get out, do your thing, go through an apprenticeship, make some money, find out what you want to do. That's amazing. All right, so we've gone through snack walls and
yeah, absolutely.
We've gone through the live LinkedIn show and the San Diego Code School itself and why you started it and where it's going. Where do you see it going in the future?
So the big push that we're making right now is to stand up our nonprofit organization. So I really believe that we want to make this very sustainable, something that can live beyond even me, right? And be some place where we can really grow the organization, and do it in a way that's responsible, and it's a little bit more organic. And so not only are we undergoing, for San Diego Code School, we're undergoing the B Corp certification. So I'm super happy and excited that, everything looks like that's going to go through and be, another feather in our cap, that we really are focused on delivering real value to our students and to the better community. And then on the other side, really standing up our nonprofit organization so that we can just serve a lot more students. And I think it'll just increase the capacity for us to work not only more in the promise zone here in San Diego, but in promise zones, hopefully across the country at some point. So we're excited about that. Is our, that's the big thing we're just chipping away at this point.
Oh, that's excellent. That is going to be wonderful when it comes through. So give us an idea of right now with the San Diego Code School, how much has changed in the numbers that are coming in, or the type of people you see, or their energy to be there, since everything is being shut down and really there's a focus on let's find another way. Did you find that everything kind of came together faster?
Not faster. It was a lot tougher. COVID was not friendly. So ironically, the same, we'd done a lot of the prep work, and we had talked to some potential, initial partners, corporate partners that were gonna, be 100% on board with this idea of the apprenticeship. Mm-hmm. And then the same month in March of 2020, we were given the green light from the state. Okay, you're officially good to go. You can start bringing in apprentices. COVID hit, and we're told, okay, you gotta close your classrooms, and you gotta sort of figure out your new business model. So you have a choice at that point as an entrepreneur, right? You can just sort of ball yourself up and cry, or you can say, what are we going to do? How do we pivot, right? And then work through your pivot. And so for us, it only made natural sense for us to take our programming remote, and for us to be able to continue to operate in sort of the same way, in the same capacity that a lot of software engineering shops are operating right now. They're 100% remote, dispersed, distributed teams. And so we knew we could do it. We didn't quite understand, all of the little logistical pieces of how we're going to deliver programming, et cetera, but we knew it was possible. And so we just started kind of working through, okay, how do we resolve this issue and that issue in real time, also standing up the new, apprenticeship program. Meant that we also had to double down and reestablish relationships with new corporate partners, because a lot of the folks that we had talked to were just in a situation because of the pandemic that they couldn't responsibly sort of expand into this new thing. And they were sort of pulling back and trying to make sure that they had just resources in place to survive. And so the initial organizations, that was all gone. So our whole list of companies were like, okay, we're going to go in there. We're going to start letting people know. And then one by one, they were all like, look, we're not hiring right now. Like, we would love to participate, but we just can't. And so it meant a lot of work. We had to go back out there and just sort of start from scratch, find another set of partners. And the good news is, we're in San Diego. So we had the good fortune of having the kindness and the community of San Diego really say, you know what, now's the right time. Our organization is in good shape. And so we found a few strategic partners that were ready to jump in, even though it was COVID, and let us sort of fill out that first cohort. So when a lot of people weren't hiring, we hired, 6 apprentices and started that first cohort. And so it was just super exciting to be in a position where we fixed all of those challenges, we got going, and immediately started seeing, positive traction, and started seeing, organizations that even just a few months in, they were like, can we hire some of these people? What does that look like? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. That's the goal. That's the point, of course. So
so you're creating things that people are taking away, which is perfect.
We turned lemons into lemonade.
Excellent. And that whole that's right, it's an apprenticeship program. So wow, so COVID hits, and it's not about the program anymore. It's about nobody can pay, and you have to find that whole new group of people.
As an entrepreneur, you don't want to just, you don't want to give up on your ideas. You want to see what, what can we do to try and, make this work. But then there's also the piece from my perspective of, it's people are hurting. People are, they're stuck at home. They really need a job now more than anything else to be able to really, take care of and provide for their family. So that part of the economy, just not being kind to folks, meant if there was any way I could pull it off, and if I could hire a 7th person or an 8th person, we did it. every time where it's like, look, it's going to stretch, it's going to be tough, but we can responsibly add another person. We did. And to the point now where we have like 14 current employees, throughout COVID. We've got 14 people that we've added to our team, and we've added more than that because the net number is 14 that we have right now. But we've hired some and already placed them within the first year of running this program. So, the proof is in the pudding, as I like to tell people, and this process works. It's tough. It's a lot of work, but it does pay off. It does work.
That is absolutely amazing. You're right. What you're doing is absolutely what people need. And what you're doing is perhaps what they can't pay for at the time, but you keep going. So you've got the 14, and the whole idea is you're training these kids, so these young people, to go and then get jobs with some of the companies that you're working with or other companies, so that you can keep pulling more kids into this program. And that turnover is...
I want to be careful when we say kids, because they're not all that young, but they're younger than us.
Yeah, I was going to say, relatively speaking, so young people, let's go with young people. So bringing the young people in with the entire intent that these young people are going through your program, and you're giving everything, all of this knowledge and all of these skills that they're going. And the idea is that they're going to take them out into the world and get a great job. And I think that's absolutely amazing. So when you start the young people in the program, what's the kind of length of the actual program before you kind of think they're ready to be out and getting a job on their own?
So the program is a 1 year, 2,000 hours. That's a standard apprenticeship timeframe. Okay. The training portion takes place in the first 3 to 4 months, depends on what type of work they're going to go off and do. And I want to be clear that the experience for them working on projects for companies starts during that period. So within the first 2 to 3 months, they're already contributing to, the whoever the corporate partner is that we're working with, to their whatever they're like. It's one of two ways that we usually partner with an organization. One is we embed them directly onto the team, and so they're working inside the organization on the team. And the other is a company can place a project, and then we kind of take ownership of the project and deliver quality software in return. In either of those cases, they're working on production software, like right out the gate, right away.
That is so cool.
We want to give them that real year of experience, right? We don't want to give them, hey, here's the theory, here's some projects on the side and a repo. We want them to truly understand, here's a test plan, and here's what it means to deliver quality software. Here's what continuous delivery means. Here's how we implement it. Here's how you work collaboratively with a group. We're going to be on, 2-week sprint cadence or a 1-week sprint cycle, and they're going to learn Agile by doing it, and really every day doing a stand-up and looking at the board and trying to figure out, like, is this in QA? Why is it stuck in QA? Does it need to go back? Does it need to go forward? Like all of those kinds of things, so that they're getting reps the same way they would if they came into an organization. Because that's what I feel like the true value of the apprenticeship is. It's you working alongside of a master and you actually doing production work, and not some like getting coffee and, running around sweeping the floor. None of that stuff. Like,
nice. So you get thrown in right.
So by the time, so by the time that they're ready at the end of the year, and in many cases much earlier than that, the organization will come to us and say, hey, we're really interested in making an offer to these students. And then the organization is usually like, so what does that cost? And then what's the logistics? And so we're just like, hey, like whatever we'll be as flexible as we can. We don't want there to be a barrier, and we want this process to be as smooth as possible. Excellent. So in many cases, it's just really interesting because the employers are always like, well, is it okay if we, it's earlier than the year? It's like, of course, like that's the goal. The goal is to get them in a permanent role and to reduce that friction. So we would never put a student in a position where it's like, okay, it's the end of the year. Now I want you to go out and look for a job. It's like, no. We're going to tee up the opportunities. I can't interview for them, but we can certainly make that process of having them interviewing and like converting as smoothly as possible. And that's part of like the value I think we bring for both sides, both the candidates and for employers. We want it to be like super easy for them to shortlist and not have to talk to and look at a lot of candidates, and to know that whenever they come to our program, they're going to get a high quality candidate that, we can sort of pare down that list and reduce the friction of them having to go through a bunch of interviews and phone screenings and resumes. Like, all that's part of what we bake into the solution.
That is absolutely excellent. So I think we covered most of that. Did we miss any part that you want to add?
No, I think we're good. I think we got it.
I think we covered most of it. So I'm going to put all the information and all the links below, and then I am going to make sure that I get information out there so people who would like to contact you know how to do that, know what that looks like, and they know, exactly what you're doing and how to take advantage of it. I think that's just absolutely amazing.
Absolutely.
So thank you very
much.
And
the last piece that I'll
go ahead.
Yeah, the last piece I'll add, and maybe you can throw a link in the comments as well, is we're always looking for mentors. We're always looking for senior engineers, folks that are even folks that are mid-level engineers that have a little bit more experience, that we would be willing to join our mentor network and become a sort of a mentor and a resource for people that are going through and either going through our pre-apprenticeship program or apprenticeship program. And so if someone works at a company and they're wanting to get involved, that's a pretty easy, low friction way. It's just like 1 hour a month that you would commit to basically sort of sharing your experience with, somebody that's kind of new.
That's excellent. All right. I will definitely put that in the comments, and 1 hour a month is, absolutely nothing if we can give back and
super doable.
Help and make the world more real. So I'm going to be showing your podcast and things like that as well. So I think that will be absolutely great. Now, is it a rolling cohort, or can we say, like, when's the next kind of new project set of people?
That's what everybody asks. Everybody asks, when's the next cohort? And it's really determined by the volume of corporate partners that we have.
Okay.
So right now we haven't announced it. It'll be soon. But we have like a ton of companies that we're talking to that are in various stages of us sort of trying to understand, what does their 2021 look like? What does their 2022 look like? And then we work backwards and we open up. So the thing I always tell people is, believe me, I want to hire people as fast as I can, but I also am not willing to train people if I don't have a job waiting for them, if we're not ready to actually finish the pipeline. So I tell people, like, there's lots of opportunity. We'd love to be supported. We have an open community that people can join and start going through, some of the early training, some of the free stuff that we offer, just to give people a taste and get them started.
Okay.
And then once it's available, if you signed up, we'll send out a blast. You won't miss the announcement to be able to come through, apply for an open position. And then the screening process is very straightforward, right? We usually do a couple a couple interviews. And then after those 2 behavioral based interviews, we can usually figure out, okay, these are the right candidates for the current cohort. And it'll be rolling, I'm assuming, at some point later this year. We'll be at the point where we're just constantly opening up a couple slots and because that's what makes the most sense for businesses. It's just literally, recovering from the pandemic. We just got to wait for the corporations to be ready and say, here's the numbers we need. And then we could work backwards.
Excellent. All right. So that sounds perfect. And that's the perfect answer, is as soon as we can. And I do like that.
No, we're excited about it.
So people can actually become a part of the San Diego Code School in terms of taking listening to your podcast and your live shows, and then going to the site. And
we have free training. Yep.
Yeah. So
there's free training available online. So I would say if they're interested, definitely try it out. If you're considering this and you think, oh, this might be something I'm interested in doing, give it a try and see if you really enjoy it. It is different than what people might think. It is challenging, but if it were easy, everybody'd be doing it. No one would be making any money, right? So it's worth investing the time if you enjoy doing it.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to make sure that information gets out as well. So thank you, Mike Roberts, very much for all the information, and we will get all of this out there so that people know more about you and can get in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kim, for having me. Appreciate it.
It was fun. Bye.